Now, it's quite apparent that Whoopi Goldberg has not been having a good 2024 year after what happened across multiple studios, one of which being the Walt Disney Company, the other of which, by the way, being DreamWorks, just to lay a couple of examples out there. She lost her role as Stretch in Toy Story 5 for 2026 after a lot of financial arguments actually took place behind the scenes. She wanted a higher payout than what was previously discussed between herself and the Disney executives. They weren't having it. It led one thing to another, and that's where things really got out of control, where she was fired and removed from Toy Story 5, and she also lost out on a major role for Shrek 5, ironically with DreamWorks, coming out also in 2026. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new, and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So we already know that Whoopi Goldberg, as of right now, is seemingly having somewhat of a hard time accepting that her career is basically stagnant and practically dead and really not going anywhere, as she is desperately trying to reignite her acting career, reignite her comedy career, and to really get things started in her later years. Now, we know what's interesting here is that we already know that Goldberg feels stuck with herself as a talk show host on The View, which by the way is run by ABC, which is run by the Walt Disney Company. One thing that we do know is that Whoopi Goldberg is having a very hard time accepting the facts that she is basically having a difficult time really getting out of The View in and of itself. Now, what's interesting here has a lot to do with Goldberg's overall bitterness showing toward the general public after she lost out on millions of dollars worth of contract deals, after she made a lot of issues herself against studio heads of Disney and DreamWorks, etc., etc. However, with, of course, the Walt Disney Company now engaging in damage control after multiple failures on their end, one significant development going on now has more to do with Whoopi Goldberg and how she is seemingly bitter and angry toward the public after she was fired by, of course, multiple Hollywood studios and lost millions of dollars from the Disney Company, for example, as well. Now, Goldberg recently delivered the following. As a woman and one who has represented those of color for decades, and I mean decades, what I find to be the most irresponsible thing coming from some of these studios is how at one moment they support you, but the minute you have comments that they don't agree with, they just decide to say, hey, your time here is done, let's move on. And that is not the way to handle promoting diversity in this industry. I will be very upfront with everyone. I have been searching for different routes in my career now that I'm in my older years, and I really want to go back to my roots with comedy, voiceover work, acting roles, etc. And some of those conversations and plans I had with some studios out there didn't really work out because of their view of my presentation on shows like The View and what I truly believe in. And that's just wrong. That is wrong behavior and doesn't deserve to be the norm in this industry that has changed over the past 20 years drastically. I may support Mr. Iger when it comes to Disney, but I also have a lot of differences with him and things I deeply disagree about him with and how he is handling this company. But speaking for all actresses and comedians out there in this industry, when you are dealing with studios that are very open, that they want to explore diversity and all the good in this world, and you are dropped like a piece of garbage just because you have certain views of the real world, or how you have differences both financially and artistically with the studio heads, that should not result in any actress or talent losing any role or chance to gain traction in their career. Ever. And I speak for everyone of all ages, whether you are young or old. It needs to stop on how some of these studios act like two-faces and don't really know who or what they support and just go with the flow. Now guys, before I move on about what Whoopi Goldberg is spewing here, she is more so alluding to DreamWorks, alright, because we know that she's still associated with the Walt Disney Company even though she was fired and removed from some projects out there, the biggest one of all being Toy Story 5. She is still a talking head on The View. So she's not fired entirely from Disney, but she was indeed dropped entirely from DreamWorks. So that's exactly why I think that she's alluding more so to DreamWorks and how she lost out on Shrek 5 and the Donkey spin-off as a brand new villainous character that was supposed to be basically voiced by Whoopi Goldberg. Now this is where things begin to pick up, is that we know that Goldberg, right, she's having a very hard time, like I said earlier in this video, accepting the fact that her career is basically locked in at The View. She can't get a voiceover gig, she can't get an acting role, she can't get any kind of stand-up comedy tour or anything like that. If she could even obtain that, who would even watch it, is beyond me. But what's interesting about this is how she goes on to blame the toxic males yet again, alright? She goes on the blame game train like many Disney hires as well. And it's not a big shocker at all. It really is not. And you can see the bitterness, slipping through right now against the public after she lost out on those contract deals with Disney, with DreamWorks, and other studios out there that we will be talking about more next week, so stay tuned on that. You can see how she's getting very angry, and I think a lot of it has to do with her real-world beliefs, her personal beliefs of, everything that's been going on, as well as, her career basically floundering right now. She has nowhere to go forward. So she goes on to conclude, it's not the right business model, it's not the way to work, and it's most certainly not the way to support diversity. We cannot let up being persistent in our move to change the world in this industry and what needs to be the norm. There is just too much toxicity with men and some women too, which makes us women look bad. Because let me tell you, no real woman would ever agree with a toxic male in this industry. Period. Never. And many out there will agree with me on that. It's 2024, baby, and it's time for change, and I'm going to prove that somehow, some way, with any chance I get. I believe my career has so much potential, and I really want to deliver roles that are exciting and entertaining to my fans, and to those out there that are just getting to know me, or else, if things don't work out, I think I need to leave this country someday. Gee, I mean, guys, do you remember the last time she said she was going to leave this country for obvious different reasons and she never did that? It just goes to show you that Whoopi Goldberg is beginning to lose her mind quite literally now, alright? Not hyperbole and not just a way of saying things. She is literally losing her mind, and I think it really is becoming a point where you can see the film industry, you can see the Hollywood bubble beginning to pop, and we all know why. But we also know that things aren't going their way. There's a lot of pushback, there's a lot of backlash. People are not dealing with Disney's nonsense anymore. People are not dealing with a lot of the studio heads anymore when it comes down to their push for DEI and using that as a priority over telling a proper, entertaining story, whether it's film or television. This is Whoopi Goldberg, again, going on the blame game train, pointing the finger at the public, pointing the finger at toxic men, and how there's also toxic women out there, as she likes to put it, and how you're not a real woman if you agree with these so-called toxic males. It's nothing more than noise when it comes down to Whoopi Goldberg and those like Joy Behar, Sunny, and a lot of other Disney hires. It's not a big surprise at all. This is just how they are, in person and on television. So overall, I would like to hear what everyone has to say about this below in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.